Jamie Branson isn't just disrupting streaming, he's detonating the status quo. As the founder and CEO of View TV, he's on a mission to fix what's broken in content monetization, taking on inefficiencies, outdated models, and anyone standing in the way of a fairer system. If streaming is the Wild West, Jamie's the sheriff with a plan. Buckle up, because today we're diving into the big ideas reshaping how we watch, create, and get paid for content.
Deserve to win when it matters most. Facing multi-billion-dollar bet the company litigation? No problem. That's why we're here. Troutman Amin, LLP is a true legal powerhouse.
Welcome to today's episode of the ADOTAT Show, where we dive deep into the ever-evolving world of streaming, advertising, and media innovation. I'm your host, Pesach Lattin. Today, I'm rocking along with Jamie Branson, the founder and CEO of View TV. Jamie is on a mission to reshape the streaming landscape, offering innovative solutions that challenge the status quo and empower content creators and advertisers alike. Get ready for a conversation that's just as sharp, irreverent, and forward-thinking as Jamie's business. Let's get into it. Jamie, streaming monetizing today is like hosting a dinner party where everyone wants a bigger slice of the pie, but no one bought the pie cutter. How do you keep things fair without losing the appetite for growth?
Yeah, I think the big thing out there is that very few people, or a lot of people, avoiding the first principles of any content, and that is to turn the content mix reviewers into revenue and repay the investment in that content. And it's kind of gone down a technology route where tech is running the show, but it doesn't have any of the risk in the investment of the original production or TV channel investment.
So I see that CTV is now projected to be $30 billion by 2025, but it's rife with tons of inefficiencies. Publishers often end with less and less of their fair share, while audiences endure an onslaught of relevant ads. What you're doing is you're working to flip the script, creating harmony where chaos reigns. So I want to ask you, if transparency in streaming is the kale salad of the industry, good for the long haul, but nobody is ordering it at happy hour.
Well, it is true. The statistics that we've done, and we've done quite endless amounts of scientific review, reverse engineering, whatever you want to call it, to the ad revenue seems to be very, very big in the top, but actually what's filtering down to the bottom into reinvesting in the future of TV is kind of a fraction of what it should be. And so therefore various parties are jumping ship, if I'm honest. And so what the audience is, which is one of the biggest stakeholders in this, people very rarely take seriously, they're demanding higher. And in some cases seeing that YouTube is a lot higher than CTV at the moment.
So who's jumping ship?
Quite a lot of the studios, don't want to name drop at this point, but quite a lot of the studios are doing it, and certainly the traditional broadcasters, the CNNs, the CBSs, the local televisions of this world, have been in the CTV fast space for a couple of years and have been shocked by the results that have come back, and so have quietly sort of like feeded away rather than shaking the cage and saying this isn't sustainable for us. Is that they've kindly sort of gone away and trying to reflect on how they go forward to the next stage. Irrespectively, the problem is not in the tech, it's to do with the business model and the structure or the workflow that it goes through. The tech seems to be, more the theoretical part of it seems to be sustainable. But because it's unregulated, a lot of people have taken advantage of that system.
So if the streaming ecosystem...
We live in an age of distraction where attention is the rarest commodity we have. Yet while consumer behavior has evolved, the way we talk to them on TV has hardly changed in 50 years. How can you expect success if viewers aren't paying attention to the screen? Origin has all the solutions for attention, consideration, and outcomes.
System was a reality show, which would it be? Survivor, Shark Cake, or Keeping Up with the CPMs?
Okay, let's throw down the shark side, really. It's, the CPM reality is not really, people know where the medium is, what their demand is. But yeah,
so you're saying it has glamorous numbers but no substance, just like the Kardashians.
It is. You could compare it very much to the Kardashians. Yes, it has a very good theoretical push, but in respect, the people controlling it are not really the people risking the dollars on the investment. It's kind of a, I don't know, we would call it a boys' club, an egocentrical. It's driven around ego and being famous more than around being a sustainable business model.
Is there any examples of just brands that are just not sustainable that you want to call out?
I suppose across different channels, if you stack up putting a traditional broadcast channel onto into CTV, and CTV is still sustainable because people are doing subscription CTV and Netflix and that sort of side. It still counts as CTV. Ad funded CTV and the guise of what people are calling fast. If you take a traditional television channels, a local TV channel, let's take WRAL over in Raleigh, their overheads are sort of $250,000 a month. They're flying around in a helicopter, doing traffic statistics, they're doing various different things, and the figures they're seeing are a tenth of what they need to get to. But when we reversed engineered the entire structure, the actual revenue to break even is actually there. It's just due to the structure of the number of intermediaries that it has to go through that the revenue disappears. And I think that's just the growth or the organic growth of programmatic being in CTV. If you put a direct ad sales team into the CTV fast structure, we know it works. We've seen some big positives in there with people like Duke Media selling to trusted brands for big bucks. So we know that the ad bucks are there, and we know that the want and will for audiences to engage, but the business model between all three stakeholders is broken. It's probably the way to put it.
So what's your elevator pitch?
So the elevator pitch is really, we decided to go in and sort of, we started in this business as a broadcaster. We had a full-time production team. We were making content every week, 15 hours of content every week. We were running a bargain bucket television channel targeted at sort of motoring enthusiasts or car enthusiasts. And then we decided to go in and say, okay, then we'll sort out the ad problem, then we'll sort out the tech problem. And now our elevator pitch is the fact that we've built the ecosystem, we've built the next ecosystem, which makes fast a legacy, or the traditional fast in CTV a legacy, in the fact that what we simply did was we didn't reinvent the technology, we reinvented the workflow. And in that process, what we've managed to do is make it so that the content owners, which includes the broadcasters, the content studios, are driving or demanding this is what they need to get from the end platforms and the advertisers, and having an element of control over that ecosystem so that they can reduce the number of intermediaries and make the whole revenue model work. And we know that works now because in Los Angeles, we're actually green lighting streaming first content from content financiers who are just saying, okay, then I'll write you a check for X million dollars to make your new TV series, as long as I can see a way of how this makes financial sense. And that's working tremendously well now. What we seriously underestimated was the kickback from the people who are currently making a lot of money out of the current system, wanting to
Retail media in 2024. It's like juggling ads, budgets, and a whole lot of guesswork. Sound familiar?
Enter Incremental, the marketing measurement tool that tells you what's working without the spaghetti mess. We're not here to guess. We're here to measure smartly, incremental, because your campaigns deserve answers, not assumptions. Visit incremental.com and start marketing like you mean it.
sustain that revenue growth.
Would you say that your model is more like a Michelin star restaurant or a food truck that gets the job better, faster, and tastier than the competition? Although I'll be honest, a food truck does seem more like you, quick, efficient, and no frills.
It is, I suppose, from a tech point of view, yes, we are doing it as like a food truck. But as we all know, a lot of food trucks, especially in Los Angeles, beat Michelin star restaurants. You know, you could have amazing food trucks. And so what we've been doing is basically, yes, we've been doing it in a simplified way rather than a cheapened way. The more complex, I think there was a phrase of old when I was doing my studies, which is called KISS, Keep It Simple Stupid, which is what we've been doing, is just taking everything to first principles and just seeing that all we have to do is put content in front of audiences and put advertisers into the content, and all parties need to come out of it very happy. And that's kind of the process that we've developed.
Yeah, I've actually said on the show that Keep It Simple Stupid is from Judge Judy, and I'm actually wrong. It's actually from the U.S. Navy from 19...
Really? Okay. So it's a good phrase to have in this thing, and I think Boolean algebra is something I kept using for a while, which was, let's just keep cutting it down to its basics. And then one of my colleagues quite happily told me that first principles, which are much more grown-up way of describing what we're trying to do, is at the end of the day, a lot of people are trying to over-engineer and over-orchestrate the technical parts of CTV, but first principles is just monetizing content and making it a sustainable solution for studios to keep making bigger, better content as audiences demand more.
So if you could ban one thing from the ecosystem forever besides my bad metaphors, what would it be?
I would ban the fact that tech wants to rule the future of content. That tech should be just a player and not a ruler. So I think big tech ruling content should be halted. That's where I see it come from.
Do you see that happening? I mean, we're looking at Netflix making their own ad tech, for example, and getting out of the ecosystem.
Yeah, I mean, what seems to happen, I mean, this happens at both app level and ad tech level, is that the people think that the way to escape the ecosystem of multiple takes or multiple inventories is to build it in-house and build it as a silo, a separate silo, rather than actually tackling the actual root cause. And when Netflix went into this originally, they hired Microsoft to do ad tech to make their first thing, which kind of failed. But the point is, there's some really good experts in this game. You just have to make sure that you pick the right partner rather than trying to avoid that partner and build your own silo. We all know that we can't be a jack of all trades, and I think it's just a matter of the good guys getting together and providing a good ecosystem between them rather than everyone trying to do everyone else's job. That accounts for apps as well. I think that Disney should go back to making great content rather than trying to provide an app. But the reason they created an app is because they couldn't find anybody to monetize their content in a sustainable way to keep up the high quality work that they do on the budgets that they have to spend. And that's how I see it. I think consolidation will end up being where the industry goes.
So looking ahead, are we on the brink of a streaming renaissance, or will the industry keep running around like a toddler with a sugar high, unpredictable and slightly dangerous?
I think it's unpredictable and slightly dangerous at the moment, but I truly believe over the last 6 years when I've been doing this, that it's starting to solidify and pretty quickly as well. It's an exponential change in 2024, where at the beginning of the year, everyone thought they're an expert, and now people are really coming to the realization that the future of TV or the future of video consumption is going to be a hybrid of the best of all worlds. And I think the sporting event on Netflix the other night kind of pointed out how that might be the start of that big change.
Well, someone pointed out, though, that it was something only, I think it was Evan Shapiro, something like 10 times less viewers than one of the Muhammad Ali matches from, 40, 50 years ago?
Yeah, it's true, and still people couldn't engage, but it was because it's behind a paywall and you had to go into Netflix to do it. So it's kind of from a content aspect, although Netflix made it, it is a direct feed. It is a direct feed, so the actual results of a previous match may not be as accurate as a one-to-one, because Nielsen's renowned for not being the most accurate. But in the fact of this, they couldn't handle the 10% that was there. But what very few people realise is that I don't think that Netflix could have solved a lot of those issues. A lot of those issues actually happened at ISP level, as in the connection with you and your broadband provider rather than Netflix. Yet Netflix got an absolute hammering for it. Going on to the future, I think one of the biggest learning exercises I learned about that Netflix thing is that one person, I forget who it is, clearly pointed out it was a meeting of generations. Is that the two fighters were two different
Yeah,
generations
and
of people.
one generation beat the daylights out of the other. What does that say?
Yes, exactly.
What does that say for our generation? Are we going to get our
But it's
asses whooped every day?
it's kind of like you're kind of getting a toddler to beat a middle school guy,
Well,
and
I don't think anyone really doubted the results. I was calling it. It's like it was a 25-year-old beating up an elderly man.
Yeah, no, it's kind of it's kind of shouldn't really have happened. But I know now they've both been suspended and various other things have happened. But like I said, I think it was a good pinnacle moment to see that live sports will be going in this direction and that people should learn from it. I think someone had to make the first move, and Netflix have been very brave to do that. So, we see it happening.
Right. Speaking of unpredictable toddlers, I want to talk about your shiny new baby. I'm going to call it Como. Is that how we pronounce it?
It is Como.
Okay.
My PR agency goes quite bonkers at me because Como should be spelt capital C little O big M little O, because it's actually an abbreviation, and so we made a very we made a very elegant analogy acronym for it, and we got shot down for that. But yeah, Como is basically short for content monetization.
And what's the difference between the old clunky fast channels?
I suppose the big difference between it is that we've made it a walled garden ecosystem. So we've taken out the inefficiencies, we've removed the requirement to integrate. So we've removed the lack of syntax. If you understand what I mean by that, is the fact that talking across multiple ad servers can lose data, can be misinterpreted in various different ways. But Como is basically us taking responsibility for the content owner, the advertiser, and the audience end of the solution as a stakeholder manager to make all three parties happy. As I know that Fast is kind of everybody is happy to be in it and happy to take a fee, but no one's taking responsibility, and the content owner loses every time.
So if Como had a dating profile, would it lead with I make your life simpler or I make you more money?
It would make your life simple. It would, in effect, make you more money, but we have no control over what makes them more money, because the part of the thing that makes them more money we don't have control over, and that is simply whether people want to watch your content. I think the latest Joker movie points it out. They spent 400 million making a program. They're making a film, and it made 120 million at the box office. Is the theatres did their best, but if no one wanted to watch it, you couldn't force them. So at the moment, we see it as being making the business model and the life simpler. Hopefully, in turn, that will make them more money. It will allow them to market it correctly to make more money in the future.
So is Como the Swiss Army knife of solution, versatile and ready for anything, or do you see it more like a scalpel cutting through the nonsense with surgical precision, and why?
Yeah, I would call it a Swiss Army knife, because we have a number of what we call origins, which are different. And as we're going back to the Netflix scenario, live sports is the biggest need in this industry at the moment. Everyone wants to watch their local match. Everyone wants to watch their best sports team. But also inside of that, you have movies, you have TV content on demand, you have linear TV, you have linear news, shopping TV, and everything else like that. So we kind of say that we'll take anything in as a Swiss Army knife and adjust it. But the underlying technology and the underlying approach is the same for all parties or all origins, really.
So what's the one thing that you think most people misunderstand about Como?
The one thing that's misunderstood is why it should exist. So a lot of people don't understand the inefficiencies in Fast, and that's mainly because a lot of the people that are involved with Fast are not the people who are investing or spending the highest amount of money, i.e. the content creator or the broadcaster. So the misunderstanding is, why did you change Fast to be Como? Why didn't you just readjust Fast? And the easiest way to explain that is, and I had many phone calls on this matter, is they said, Jamie, this is Fast, this is the way it is. And trying to change someone's perception about an existing approach was more difficult than making a completely different swim lane and cutting that approach. And like I say, it's nothing to do with technology. it's literally to do with the revenue model and the stakeholder splits involved across the ecosystem. So they don't understand why it exists, even though I did, for the last 18 months, try and change the perspective of Fast.
If you had to choose a mascot, what would it be? A sleek cheetah, fast, efficient, and deadly to the competition, a wise owl, calm, strategic, and always one step ahead, or a honey badger?
I'd like to say it's the wise owl. I would like to say it carries sort of my perspective on this, which is it's the wise owl. It's the clever guy sitting at the back of the room, not the guy shouting at the front. We've had I think over the last 2 or 3 weeks we've had a mass contact, and my inbox has been mad over the last few weeks. The main reason is because the content owners are quite happy to expose the fact that they're having problems. So the adoption is not just the channels and the content. The adoption is actually also the platforms as well, as they are just basically taking a percentage of what the channels are. But the reason that we've had a mass adoption of this is mainly from traditional media. So we've taken in sort of CNN, CBS, Paramount. We're taking in Fox News to build some processes, because we've hit them with a business model that makes sense. And we say, if we do this many hours, we can make this work. And I think traditional media runs primarily on the back of a business case, a capital expenditure report, as I think Fast has traditionally been running on an egotistical, let's have a fun gold rush rise. So Como is being adopted not only by broadcasters, and in some cases we can expose next week, sports, live sports, but also the platforms, because we're stating to them that if they don't adopt this, they're not going to have these particular content streams. So what's actually happened is that the content owners and the platforms, that the audience platforms, have actually seen it at exactly the same time. But it did take me a while to kind of flip that switch. It took me a lot of effort to make them understand.
So I want to move forward and talk a little bit about my favorite part, which is hypothetical desert islands. If you could bring 5 people with you to a desert island, who would they be and why?
5 people. I'm a big fan of Elon Musk, and we'll take the Trump side away from that. I'm a big fan of Elon Musk because I'm an engineer as well of basis. So I like his strategy on life, and I think he's a very big hard worker and deserves everything he's got. So I think in that stage, I think that anybody, I suppose, if I was to go on from that, I like Ryan Reynolds. Ryan Reynolds is a genius. I don't think people realise that Ryan Reynolds is a genius because he owns a marketing agency, not because he's an actor.
Right.
His strategy and marketing is truly amazing. People bring him in. He wasn't really the owner of Mint Mobile, and it sold for over $1 billion, but he was just mimicking simple advertising. And although he was a famous actor and he brought that into it, but he find his way of marketing fascinating. And he's obviously made a great success out of business by being a great marketeer. I think on top of that, then I would go down to strategic levels of being more into the engineering side, and I would go down to Clive Sinclair. If the audience isn't too old enough to remember him, Clive Sinclair was a genius in his day. I think if it had been in his current day, he would have been at the forefront of AI, but he certainly thought of things in a new style way. I'm probably struggling on the last 2, if I'm honest.
I have notes. I have B.A. Baracus and your dog and a friend named Maddie.
I would certainly bring my dog to the island, yeah, because he's probably the person that, on a difficult day, he's the person that really doesn't care what I do as a job.
They had the A-team over there, or did you learn about it here?
No, the A-team in the UK, yes. And the A-team was very big in the UK, and he was always one of the guys. It was very big in the UK. I think a lot of the US shows. I mean, when I was at school, it was the Knight Rider, so David Hasselhoff, and the A-Team. Then you had Airwolf. Airwolf was a big thing as well. So all of the the American style drama shows were all very big in the UK.
So if Sir Clive Sinclair was still around, what advice do you think he'd give to you about disrupting this industry?
I think he'd probably have warned me a while ago to probably think about it a little bit harder than I did. But secondly, I think he would say that that the only way to disrupt and to gain following is to mathematically display that there's an advantage and upside to the key stakeholders, which ironically is what we've done over the past sort of 4 to 6 weeks. And it actually has worked. Yeah, I think it would have attacked it more with a whiteboard and less with a hammer.
So why your friend Matty? Is he brilliant? Is it unshakable loyalty? Or does he have the ability to grab drinks after brainstorming?
Probably there to grab drinks after brainstorming and doesn't understand what I do as a job. But more so, the fact he's... I kind of find people like Matty very open-minded and treat you as the person you are rather than the person you come across as. So I find Matty as being a very real person and the ability to sort of chill out, come back down to earth, and without being judged.
So if you could host a dinner party with any industry legends, who would you choose? A. David Ogilvy, pioneering ads with actual substance. B. Reed Hastings, Netflix streaming trailblazer. Or Steve Jobs, redefining tech and marketing as art?
Reed would be the one I really do the dinner party with. I've watched his recent.
Well, he's also the only one that's alive.
Well, that helps. That helps on the dinner front. But I watched his documentary more recently on how he created it, and it was unplanned. That's the thing. It wasn't like he sat there and meticulously planned it. He hit pitfalls. He solved problems. He moved forward, and he was not spooked and scared by the journey. He saw everything as a challenge and moved forward. I mean, it was quite eye-opening, some of the problems that he went through.
What's one lesson you learned from someone who didn't make it to Metaphorical Island? Let me guess, it's a lesson about who not to bring.
What lesson did I learn from somebody who wasn't? I probably learned a lesson, probably more lessons than ever in Fast on the basis of people who have been strong-arming or forcing the industry to move. I don't think I can mention a particular name, and I won't do for this podcast, but I think what I did learn is that dictating the movement of the industry never works. And as I came from my university days, I did my dissertation on management of change, and this has certainly helped me in this process. A lot of people have been dictatorial, as I found it much easier to bring people and educate people to bring them on board. But yeah, I would say it would be one or many of the existing fast industry that would be in that box.
But you often emphasize loyalty as the secret sauce in streaming. What is one story or project where you saw this value truly pay off?
Sorry, can you repeat that first bit again?
Sorry, you often emphasize loyalty as the secret sauce in advertising. What is one story or project where you saw this value truly pay off?
Okay, so the loyalty in advertising, and whether loyalty is the right word or not, I'm unsure, but it is the loyalty in the streaming side, loyalty in the advertising side and sponsorship side is more, I would say, about working very closely with the stakeholders. I'm a big stakeholder manager, making sure that everyone's getting what they want out of it, and in that sort of sense, everyone's walking away happy or walking away with more than they came into it with. So loyalty-wise, I think at the moment there is zero loyalty in Fast. It's I keep referencing it on LinkedIn as a game of hungry hippos. The person who can hit the tail fast enough actually. And I think that the loyalty side of this, in working with some of the amazing people in the content generation side of Fast, is when you work with them loyally, they give you back 10 times more. And I've found to earn more revenue and more value to the business by being very genuine and loyal to each particular channel, rather than just trying to take as much as you possibly can. I think that's where I was going with that sort of term.
So if you could write a streaming loyalty manifesto, what would be the first commandment? A, thou shalt not bombard thy audience with irrelevant ads. B, thou shalt pay thy publishers fairly. Or C, thou shalt stop over-promising metrics because no one believes you anyway.
It's my catchphrase, in that thou shalt pay their publishers fairly. I think that's what I'm. If you split me in half, that's what we've written through me. Is I'm kind of. I've been compared to being the I'm robbing the rich to pay the poor at the moment.
Right.
In a Robin Hood state. At the moment, I see that keeping the channels and keeping the content providers in a sustainable revenue business means that you'll just get more and more in the future. And if you don't pay them fairly, they will die, and therefore you'll have to create it all yourself. So I think it's a teamwork effort. And so, yeah, paying the publishers fairly is pretty much my one catchphrase.
So since loyalty is as rare as a blockbuster rental, what's one thing publishers and advertisers get completely wrong about building trust? And you can't say better metrics.
No, I think transparency is definitely the big that's missing. Transparency, the opaqueness of the industry at the moment is borderline criminal, in the fact that nobody really knows the difference between what's coming in and what's going out, and that's being controlled by the people who are making the money out of the industry. I think the transparency across the system is to understand you've got a bidder or an advertiser coming in this much, and you're getting this much. If it was a fair value, then the transparency would be there. The opaqueness is merely covering up the fact that people know they're taking an unfair stake across the business.
So what does fair play look like?
I think fair play, I've done a recent study on this, and I think fair play is a percentage of gross revenues depending on how much value and effort you put into the process. So come across various companies who are making lots of money using automated software, while the person trying to produce entire television shows is getting getting the same amount of money. So I think there's a very much cash for effort involved in this, and at the moment the seesaw is the wrong way around. The fact that the people putting the most effort in are getting paid the least.
So what do you think the future of loyalty in streaming looks like? A handshake, a gold star, or a dog waiting at the door?
I think it's a handshake. I think it's about the right people working together. And I say I diss a lot of Fast. There's some very, very good people in Fast. They're just being browbeaten by the loud and wealthy. So yeah, I believe that the Wild West can be cleaned up by a sheriff sometime.
So I want to talk about all the little shiny toys that are reshaping the industry: AI, AR, VR. It all feels like a sci-fi movie we've been watching for years, part genius and part robot overlord. How do you see it shaping the way we create, distribute, and monetize content?
Okay, this is something I've been recently very interested in. I see AI as being an enabler rather than a replacer, in the fact that I believe that when you watch movies, and I've done a lot in content marketing, is you watch it when you go and see a movie, and in a lot of the times you'll go and see a movie because of the director, the writer, or the actor in the movie. AI can't replace any one of those three. It may make virtual writers, virtual directors, and various things in the future, but at the moment, what AI is allowing people to do is to express themselves. Now, I can give you a very good, clear example of that, is that I write about the industry, of the streaming industry, quite a lot at the moment, but I'm unable as a person to write it elegantly enough to engage certain types of people. And so I write it in my words, and I use AI to turn my terminology into a format that will engage different levels of people. So as an example of that, I write something about the future of television and that the revenue structure should look like this. I then get AI to write that in the style of a comedian, and I get that to write it in the style of a lawyer. and then I hit 3 different markets with the 3 different styles of writing. And so that's an enabler to me that I can attack a market I couldn't do. But AI couldn't have made the original document that I got it to reword. And so
Yeah,
I see AI.
Yeah, I have to use it to. I'm too verbose. Like I tend to write too much, and I have to have AI to cut it down. I'll have like 10 pages, and I need like 2 because I just ramble on. And I've started using the voice to text, so that makes it worse.
You just walk around the room with your AirPods in, yeah. So it's just the like I say. I mean, AI. I believe. I mean, I've seen some amazing AI. One of the big ones that is top of the industry at the moment is turning it into different languages. So different languages can understand feature films that could never be afforded to be done before, and various content that's on YouTube can be done in several different languages. So it's an enabler to widen the audience. I don't see it as replacing. I see people making videos and things like that, but nothing's at feature film level yet. And like I say, the reason you go and see a feature film is usually because Ryan Reynolds is in it, or Spielberg's written it, or directed it, or things like that. So you'll never get rid of that branding. And, it's like saying that AI can make a pair of trainers, but it's not going to replace Nike. So that's how I see it going into the sort of VR world. Maybe that will go down the same route as 3D. Is that it's all good and fun, and it's very your friends come down and it's pretty cool. But can you really be bothered to have 2 kilograms of tech on your face while you're watching a film?
3D glasses. What was about 5 years ago? All the TVs were trying to come out 3D.
Yes, exactly.
And nobody did it.
No, because you had to sit around with your friends with $1 pairs of specs on, which made you look ridiculous. Nobody brought it out to being 3D in front of you, although loads of people spoke about it. No one actually solved that problem. And so I think it just becomes a social faux pas, is that you don't want to sit down with goggles on. I mean, I've got Oculus and things like that, which is amazing. Sometimes I sit in Oculus and I can play poker against people that are on the other side of the world, and it looks amazing. But I wouldn't do it with any of my family around. I look ridiculous. So
yeah,
I think it has its place.
Does boxing with it, and every so often someone makes this mistake of getting near him, and he can't see anything.
Yeah, so it's quite dangerous.
And he's broken a light now too so far.
So yeah, it becomes, like I say, they're all fun things, but I think there's a difference between having something that's fun and something that's mainstream. I still don't think that people can replace the big screen lean back experience.
So which one is overhyped? AR, VR, or AI? Or NFT?
Well, NFTs are definitely overrated. I saw a video the other day where a guy spent $425,000 on a picture that's now worth $45. No, I mean, I think AI is being driven out of all proportion. I don't think the valuations are actually going to stack up. I think it's another gold rush. But I really think that VR in its current state is kind of overrated. I think it will get to the point where VR will turn into a room experience, but at the moment, it's not quite there yet.
So if you had unlimited amount of money to build the next tech innovation for streaming, what would you build?
Very good point. I probably am building it. It's basically an independent delivery of content to audiences while providing a revenue model. But if I was to build anything really in streaming, I would probably look at the film production business on the basis of removing the amount of effort into creating such amazing productions. And I know it's quite a sensitive subject, is that people in LA certainly don't want to use AI. But I really believe that if they don't use AI and make the whole industry more streamlined, that the YouTube creators are going to beat them to number of views. So I think the ability to uplift YouTube creators and down cost movies is whatever I would build. I couldn't give you a name for it, but that's certainly where it needs to be.
So every innovator has a few battle scars. What is one failure you still think about, not because it hurts, because it taught you the most?
One of the I suppose from my point of view, the one that I learned most of is probably the more recent one, which is I was trying to tackle an industry which was inherently the Wild West with decorum. I was trying to tackle it in a, hey guys, let's sit down and let's have a discussion about this. Let's see if we can do it. And what I really needed to do was to set fire to it and walk away and build something else. And that cost a lot of money to the business, but secondly made me rejudge humans. If I'm honest, there was a lot of greed in this, and I didn't realise that people were so nasty in the industry. It's very much a selfish take across the industry. So more recently, I've learned that I should review the landscape of the people, or review the people that I'm trying to speak to them in the right way. And that may be the wrong way, because I'm quite a placid person. I don't like to enthrall, but I kind of felt like, and my colleague, who was a little bit more brash than I said, the only way you can deal with stupid is to be stupid. And that was probably my biggest learning exercise, is how to solve a problem which was inherently wrong, which wasn't going to be fixed by me being proactive and scientific. I had to beat it with sticks and stones.
So you've said before that you believed in something until you looked under the hood. What's one thing that you uncovered that makes you said never again?
Never again. I don't know if it's never again. I think looking under the hood of the existing programmatic structure of CTV is when I looked under the hood, I found that it was rife with multiple takes with no
structure
at all.
Right.
It was just rife, and it was at the sacrifice of the content owner, the people that we were trying to keep functioning. But nobody had any. Nobody was found it to be a problem. I spoke to loads of people, and they said there's enough money there for us all to take a middle piece, and that was kind of a distracting part for me, is that nobody really had any. I don't know what you would call it, really. They just weren't bothered. It was, I'm okay, thanks, Frank, and I'm moving on. If the people further down aren't happy, that's where it goes. No, with a short term gain was what I didn't realise was going to happen. And the one thing around it is that stopped me in my tracks was when I was relaying this to other people who were actually more scientific. They said, Jamie, you're lying. There's no way this could be happening. No one could be this daft to do this. And so I was kind of sat in the middle between a truth and a truth and being unable to communicate it.
Looks like my studio light just blew out.
That's fine. I don't know if it'd fall down. I didn't see it, but I don't know if it's fallen down or not. So.
What's the best advice failure ever gave you besides don't do that again?
Best advice that failure gave me? I would have to say that always go with your gut instinct. If your gut instinct is telling you not to do it, then either reevaluate it until you know that you're 100% confident, or follow your gut instinct.
Just a delight. If you could send yourself a message to your 20-year-old self, what would it say? A, buy Bitcoin. B, don't trust anyone with a PowerPoint. C, stop wasting time on things that don't scale.
I would say buy Bitcoin if I was being flippant about it, but I would say don't waste time on things that don't scale.
What's the one trait that you think that separates innovators like yourself from imitators, besides caffeine consumption?
I think the difference between the two is one is looking to solve a problem, which is what my thing is. I always see that any product or productization is merely solving a problem. As on the other flip side is they just want to make money fast. And so I see much the same as I was told many years ago about earning money, is if you're good at what you do, the money will come secondary. And that's why soccer players, footballers become wealthy, is that they didn't go into football to make money. They went into football or soccer to play soccer. And that's always been a great thing to follow.
So you've had this groundbreaking career, but let's get a little personal. What's one guilty pleasure, streaming or otherwise, that you would never admit in a boardroom? And don't worry, we'll keep your secret.
One of my guilty pleasures.
And this is a family show.
No problem at all. I spend way too much on cars. I'm a big car fanatic.
What do you have?
What
do you have that you're most proud of?
Range Rover, because as I moved from the UK to the US, I got I got rid of vehicles. But it's my guilty pleasure. I'm not a big drinker. I'm not a drug taker. I'm not a smoker. I just love cars. But the way in which I deal with cars doesn't work out on a spreadsheet. So as a business model, my buying pattern in cars is not a good business model. It doesn't make out to be a business person, but it's the one thing that makes me driven.
So Aston Martin or Jaguar?
Aston Martin all day long, although I've worked for both of them.
Well, Jaguar used to own Aston Martin for like a decade, right?
Well,
Ford
JLR, yeah. So Ford owned it, was part of JLR, yeah. So
it's when it's what we call the ugly button era, because the Aston started getting all the Ford ugly buttons, you know.
It did, yes. You had a Ford Mondeo or various Ford switches on vehicles, but that was just because Aston Martin was trying to scale and they were trying to save parts. But nowadays, you still have Lamborghinis with Audi parts and various other things on. So everyone's trying to.
I think it's the Jaguar F-Type. Looks just like a DB7.
Yeah, I've had one of those. Yeah, the little Jaguar. It's kind of like a cheap Aston Martin as well. But it's a lot of them overlap. I mean, to give you some idea, the new Range Rover Sport and the new Range Rover is actually the same car underneath. It's just got a different body on the top. So people are buying exactly the same car. It just happens to be that the seating inside gives you an extra foot of leg room. But yeah, I mean, standardizations on platforms is a big thing nowadays. So cars is not a business to play in at the moment, especially electric cars.
What's one show or movie you would always rewatch, no matter how many times you've seen it?
Big Bang Theory. I think I'm on to the 14th play of every single series now. Yeah.
I've never seen it, and my wife thinks I'm crazy. Like, I know all the references and all the actors. I just never seen the show.
Yeah, no, it is. It's very good. There's actually a better show that came out in a similar style called Silicon Valley, which I think you would amazingly enjoy because it's about startups. But it's the same sort of style of sitcom. It's actually a video streaming startup, and me and my original business partner, we used to laugh and joke because all of the things in there, which everyone was laughing and joking about, used to happen to us in real life.
Is it like Office for Silicon Valley?
It is, yes. It's like that, yeah.
So which Office do you prefer, the British or the American version?
I actually prefer the American version, although Ricky Gervais would go mad. But the American version, I think they just stepped it up. I think the British version would have done the same if they were second to market as well. But Steve Carell just took it to a different level. He was amazing in it.
So Doctor Who or Red Planet?
So who or what? Sorry?
Red Planet. Red Dwarf. Sorry.
Oh, Red Dwarf. No, I'd probably be Red Dwarf. Yeah.
Yeah, you're the second person who said that. I can't get anyone to say it. So, do you like the new Doctor? What do you think about it?
Yeah, I think it's a 50-50 hybrid, isn't it, between BBC and in Disney? So I think it's
right. There's a Disneyfication of it a little bit. Yeah, they had some weird Muppets or something on it.
Exactly, but no, I think it's changing. But if you spoke to any of my friends who are big Doctor Who fans, they'll dismiss it, I think. But yeah, they all like to rewind. There's a guy called Frank Skinner who's a comedian in the UK who's a massive fan of it, and I listened to his podcast, run on about it for about an hour on how he was disappointed.
So if you weren't leading the streaming revolution, what completely unrelated career would you love to try? And you can't say retire.
Racing driver. I should have been a racing driver.
You still could be. Are you guys thought of sponsoring a car?
Yeah, I suppose that's what a lot of people do when they exit the tech business, is they become a racing driver. But driving is one thing I do naturally. And in fact, that's why I made a TV channel about driving. All the car manufacturers used to drop off all of the latest cars, and so I thought I was in heaven. But I should have been a racing driver. Yeah. Like you say, I could probably try it in a few years' time.
So which one irrational fear or superstition that you secretly hold on to?
Irrational fear? Superstition-wise, I still salute magpies. One magpie is bad luck to me. But I don't really have any irrational fears.
They're all rational?
Not yet. No, not yet. But no, I just only have my superstitions. I have, the number 13 and saluting a magpie.
What's the best compliment you ever received? And did it feel earned, or were they just trying to butter you up?
I think they were trying to butter me up, but I did a project which I was actually set up to fail on purpose, and I succeeded. And they said that they'd never seen someone with such Herculean drive and effort into a project. But I think it was kind of like, we were hoping you'd fail, so this was our response to it. They said in that way.
So if your life was a movie, what would you see the soundtrack be? It would be like a Hans Zimmer or something like Never Gonna Give You Up?
Hans Zimmer's great. I mean, I would probably say if you've watched the latest rendition of Beverly Hills Cop with Harold Faltermeyer of XLF, then I would say that's more up my street. Yeah, that's kind of my lifestyle. Either that, or I'd go down to Ocean's 11 and go completely retro. You know, every time I walked, it played a wah-wah pedal sort of thing.
So before we go, what is one thing that you want people to remember about you, not just as an innovator, but as a person?
I think what I want people to realise, I suppose, from the point of view, or from my point of view, is that I'm doing what I'm doing for a good reason. I'm not doing it for necessarily personal growth. Is that I have good intentions. That's all I ever want to be known for, is I have good intentions in trying to make something work.
And that's a wrap on today's episode of the ADOTAT Show. A huge thanks to Jamie Branson for shedding light on the chaos of streaming and showing us how to bring order to the madness. A special shout out to our sponsors, Troutman Amin and Origin, for making this show possible. Your support helps us keep pushing the boundaries of what's next in advertising and media. If this episode got you thinking or laughing, hit subscribe, share it with your network, and let's keep the conversation alive. Until next time, stay bold, stay curious, and know more than you did yesterday.